Have you ever caught someone red-handed stealing electricity from you, only for them to call the cops on you? Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me when I discovered my HOA president, Brenda Thornfield, had been running illegal power lines from my grandfather's cabin to her mansion for over 8 months. Brenda wasn't just stealing our electricity. She was bleeding us dry with fake violation notices while heating her driveway and running grow lights, all with stolen power. The moment I confronted her with the proof, she didn't apologize. Instead, she escalated. During a February blizzard, she cut the power to my 89-year-old grandfather's oxygen machine. And then, as if that wasn't enough, she dialed 911, screaming that I was stealing community electricity and threatening a disabled veteran. That night, my grandfather almost died. I found him gasping for air, his lips turning blue, his medical equipment silent in the freezing cabin. That's when I decided to show her who really owned the power around here. And when she saw the proof, her face froze. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started. My name's Samuel Gallagher, a 45-year-old electrical engineer, and I thought inheriting my grandfather's cabin would be the best thing that ever happened to me. I couldn't have been more wrong. See, my grandfather, Walter, built this cabin in 1952 on 5 acres of pristine Colorado mountain land in what is now called Pine Ridge Commons. Walter wasn't just any builder. He was one of the founding members of the rural electrification project that brought power to the valley. My grandfather's cabin wasn't just a building to me, it was a sanctuary. After my divorce, when I felt like I'd lost everything that mattered, I would retreat to the cabin every weekend with Walter, who was now 89 and relying on an oxygen concentrator. We'd run workshops for underprivileged kids, teaching them solar power basics, circuit design, anything to get them interested in trades. The sound of their laughter would echo through the pine trees, the crunch of aspen leaves under their boots as they worked on projects. My grandfather's proud smile as he shared stories about the old days when men built things to last. That cabin was the embodiment of 3 generations of Gallagher legacy. But Pine Ridge Commons changed everything. Over the years, developers built 200 cookie-cutter homes around our property, turning Walter's peaceful retreat into the center of a suburban maze. Every house looked identical: beige siding, black shutters, manicured lawns that probably got measured with rulers. It felt like a movie set where someone forgot to add personality. And then there was Brenda Thornfield, the HOA president. Picture the kind of woman who drives a white BMW with vanity plates reading HOA for EVR, carries a clipboard like it's a scepter, and has never done an honest day's manual labor in her perfectly manicured life. Brenda had been HOA president for 3 years, wielding those bylaws like weapons against anyone who dared think outside her suburban box. Her McMansion sat at the entrance to the community, 4,000 square feet of architectural blandness, with a heated driveway, grow lights blazing from every window, and enough outdoor illumination to guide aircraft to a landing strip. Our first confrontation happened one crisp October morning when I found Brenda on my porch, clipboard in hand, high heels clicking against the wooden planks Walter had installed by hand. "Mr. Gallagher," she announced, not bothering with pleasantries, "this structure violates community standards. The rustic appearance affects neighboring property values, and those solar panels are an eyesore." I gripped Walter's hand-carved railing, feeling the smooth grooves worn by decades of family gatherings. "Ma'am, this cabin was here 30 years before your HOA existed. My grandfather was the original landowner who sold those plots to your developers." Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Well, times change, don't they? You have 30 days to paint this structure beige to match our approved color palette, or you'll face daily fines starting at $100, escalating to $500. She handed me violation notices, the papers rustling like dead leaves. "Oh, and those little workshops of yours? We'll need to discuss whether running a commercial operation is appropriate for residential zoning." As she clicked back to her BMW, I caught something that made my electrical engineer brain pause. The distinct hum of overloaded transformers and the smell of diesel exhaust mixing with clean mountain air. Something wasn't adding up about the power consumption around here. I had no idea I was looking at the biggest electrical thief in 3 counties. Brenda Thornfield wasn't the type to make idle threats. Within a week of our porch confrontation, she'd done her homework, and I mean the kind of research that would make a private investigator proud. First came the certified letter, Notice of Commercial Activity Violation. Apparently, Brenda had spent her weekend digging through county records, discovering that my cabin predated the HOA by 30 years, and decided to play a different angle. She filed a complaint with the county, claiming I was running an illegal commercial operation with my youth workshops. According to her, I was operating an unlicensed trade school that posed significant safety hazards to the community. The woman had actually counted the number of teenagers coming to my property and documented their license plates like she was running surveillance. The county inspector showed up unannounced one Saturday morning. I was teaching 15-year-old Jake Morrison how to wire a solar panel array when this official-looking guy in a hard hat started poking around, clearly expecting to find code violations everywhere. "Sir, I need to see your electrical permits, business licenses, and safety documentation," he announced, pulling out a digital camera. I handed him a folder thick enough to choke a horse. Every permit, every inspection certificate, every safety protocol I'd implemented. The inspector's confident expression slowly deflated as he flipped through page after page of documentation that exceeded every county requirement by a significant margin. "Your electrical work is actually better than most commercial facilities I inspect," he admitted, testing the GFCI outlets I'd installed throughout the workshop. The inspector was so impressed he stayed for lunch, asking questions about my solar setup and taking notes about my teaching methods. But Brenda's first major assault had backfired spectacularly. Not only did I pass inspection with flying colors, but the county inspector commended my program and suggested I apply for official educational certification. But Brenda wasn't done. She launched a psychological warfare campaign, organizing what she called a safety committee meeting, inviting every homeowner within a 1/4-mile radius to discuss the ongoing security concerns posed by my property. Naturally, I wasn't invited, but Dorothy Vance, a sweet 78-year-old retired teacher who lived 3 houses down, filled me in on the details later. "That woman stood up there with a PowerPoint presentation," Dorothy told me, her voice trembling with indignation. "She had photos of your cabin, your workshop, even pictures of the kids' cars parked on the street. Called it a comprehensive threat assessment." According to Dorothy, Brenda painted a picture of dangerous teenagers learning to work with electricity, unsupervised access to power tools, and the inevitable liability issues that would destroy everyone's property values. She even brought fake testimonials from concerned parents worried about their children's safety. The worst part? She claimed my grandfather's old wiring was creating fire hazards for the entire community. That's when I decided it was time to fight fire with fire. I spent the next 2 weeks diving deep into property records, going back to 1952, when Walter first bought the land. What I discovered was fascinating. My grandfather hadn't just owned the property. He'd retained specific easements and rights that were grandfathered into every subsequent development agreement. The cabin had explicit protections for agricultural and educational use that no HOA bylaw could override. I remembered reading about similar cases during my engineering studies where original property rights often supersede later restrictions. It was like finding a legal ace up my sleeve. The real revelation came when I started documenting Brenda's enforcement patterns. I drove through Pine Ridge Commons with a camera, noting every single bylaw violation I could find. The Hendersons' bright blue front door? No violation notice. Mrs. Ryan's elaborate garden gnome collection? No problem. But my historically protected cabin was the biggest threat to community standards. I filed a counter-complaint documenting Brenda's discriminatory enforcement and started keeping detailed logs of every interaction. What I didn't know yet was that her obsession with my property had nothing to do with aesthetics or safety. She was covering up something much bigger and much more profitable. Brenda's next move was a road blockage. I came home one Tuesday evening to find orange traffic cones blocking the narrow gravel path that connected my grandfather's property to the outside world. Private community property, authorized vehicles only. I called Brenda to complain. "Oh, Mr. Gallagher, the safety committee voted to restrict access to non-conforming properties until code compliance can be verified. This road provided legal access to my property, and I wasn't going to let her get away with this." I made 2 calls, one to my lawyer and another to the Postal Service. By Thursday morning, a very angry postal supervisor was standing at Brenda's front door, explaining how blocking mail delivery violated federal law. The cones disappeared by noon. But instead of backing down, Brenda escalated. Every morning brought a new violation notice. Improper parking for my truck. Noise violation for running a saw at 2 p.m. landscaping noncompliance because my wildflower meadow didn't match the community-approved grass mixture. Dorothy Vance started documenting everything for me. She's completely lost her mind, Dorothy said, shaking with anger. It reached its peak when I caught Brenda on my property again, taking photos of my electrical panel and peering through windows. Excuse me, but you're on private property without permission, I said. She turned, face flushed, and pulled out her phone. I'm calling the sheriff's department right now to report suspicious activity. That's when Jake Morrison stepped out of the workshop, holding the GFCI outlet we'd been installing. Should I call the county inspector who was here last month? Jake asked. Brenda's face drained of color as she realized she'd been caught. That evening, I reviewed the photos I'd taken of their inspection and found something shocking. A thick orange extension cord running from the community junction box to Brenda's property. That's when it hit me. Brenda was stealing massive amounts of electricity. The hum of overloaded transformers, the odd power consumption patterns, it all made sense now. And the best part? Brenda had handed me the smoking gun on a silver platter. But I needed more evidence.